when I break through. I don't know what comes next, but I couldn't care less. I refuse to feel stress. There's no fear in my chest.
Hi, everybody. Wow. I have Sally Forcier of Forcier Casting and Productions here with me today. And you don't know this about me, but I'm a SAG actress. And to have someone from a production company here talking about movies and dreams as they relate to that is super exciting for me. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. And I love how the small world situation happened.
I know.
You know, me in casting and producing, and you're a SAG actor. That's awesome. I got a new one in my belt. I can put you to work.
So here's the thing, that this whole thing came about because I felt like people were stopping dreaming with COVID. And I saw young people really struggling. And it was important to me to get people in front of them that are doing things at a high level that maybe didn't realize they would be where they are today and started dreaming young as a child and maybe had to pivot or do things and had failures. And so we're going to talk about your dreams.
That's awesome.
And I'm excited because dreams don't have to be crazy big. So when you were little, tell me about your childhood.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I mean, I honestly can't remember the last time somebody asked me that question. So I'm excited to share. I mean, really when I was little growing up, I mean, personally, I dreamt of having a stable home. And, just didn't have that growing up at all. So that was a big part of it. And I think that was really something that created this work ethic of mine.
Okay.
Because I certainly didn't have that by examples.
Okay.
In my household.
Which is a good point, which means that you don't have to have it by example.
Right.
You can create it.
You can create, exactly. And I've always said that. I'm like, I feel like people need to know that just because your current situation, no matter how old you are, your current situation does not dictate your future. It's what you want, what your passion, what your dream is. So thank you for asking that. My other dream was I wanted and dreamt about being an actress.
Okay.
I mean, I was like
a lot of little kids do.
Yeah, I was
right?
a performer from day one. Like I was, out of all the sisters, I was up there dancing on the coffee table. Dad's like, hey, I can't see the TV. Get out of my way. My other sister, Teresa, she was the thespian. She was the actress. And then she would come to my elementary school. She was 6 years older, and she would pull me out of school, elementary school, and take me to their traveling plays that they did for other schools.
Wow, how cool.
And so that was my first example of performing in theater. Thank you, my sister Teresa. And then that was like, God, I just remember it's so fun and liberating. And they had watching them. I was sitting down with all the other kids watching, and they would just had such a great time. And so that really instilled, like, I can take this creative side of me and put it towards that. But it really wasn't until I was an adult that my sister, Teresa, again, dragged me to a casting call. And it was one of those like, hey, just come, show up, take a picture, blah, 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 get in our database. And we both went. I got a call a week later to work on at the time it was called Made for TV movies.
Okay.
You remember those?
Yes, I do.
And I worked with Tony Danza and Patrick Swayze and
How lucky is that?
Cameron Manheim from Romeo and Michelle and the other shows that she's done. And I just got bit by the bug, and that was it. It was over. So I was a young mom at that time and decided to pursue my acting career professionally, but just as a hobby, because I was a mom first and a wife at the time for my daughter's dad. And I pursued it, and one thing led to another. So that's jumping ahead quite a few years.
So, okay, one thing led to another, but let's go back a little bit. Okay. Segue back.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your first dream was to have a stable home.
Yeah.
And that you didn't let that stop you from creating. So was the theater a way to have a, image of another life? Was it a way to propel yourself into another place, another space?
Yeah,
do you think?
I think that maybe was the draw, and the fascination was, being an actor, you can be anything. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of gave me this release and that's why I find with most actors, you step out of your own reality for a minute and you get to create something, create a character out of nothing off a piece of paper. So I didn't do a lot of theater or the stage, but I did a couple. mostly in church and a little community. But when I got into on-camera acting, I'm like, oh, this is my jam, because I remember
It's very different too.
Very
because it's
different.
Smaller.
Yeah,
It's much smaller than when you're on stage and doing a play.
Yeah, everything is very real, authentic, organic, transparent on camera. So I always say stage acting, more is more. On camera acting, less is more. You're in a little box. But I just felt it was more my jam, and I remember, yes, that was part of the allure and the draw. But it was also, I think for me, it was, if I can do this and find a way to make money, actually not as a hobby, to be an actor, and that's where I ended up going behind the scenes a little bit. So
let's talk about that, because some people might say, when you're in the modeling business, acting business, casting calls, 50 people, one gets chosen. Failure is your middle name, because you're failing every day.
Yep.
And you're just not right. You don't have the right look. You don't have the right height. Your nose is off. Your ears are too big. Whatever it is, it becomes almost like a personal assault on who you are.
Right.
And I think that you develop a grit.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to being told no. You're so used to be told you're not right, that you have to have some kind of inner belief in yourself. And I think a lot of young people today think that the first person that tells them no, or the first person that tells them you're not right, they take it personally.
Right. Yep.
They take it personally.
Yep.
And you're the only person who can control.
100%.
So how did you not, you didn't make it in front of the camera, and you chose to pivot.
Yep.
And go behind the camera. How did that happen?
So again, at the time I was a young mom and married. So I was a wife and a mom first. And then, so I never really thought I would go to Hollywood and be a big time actor. But of course I dreamt it. I mean, sure. Even as a little kid, I didn't know that was going to be my path. I thought it would be fun. It'd be great. And so when I was in that decision mode, I was working as an actor and then trying to find a way to work from home on other things. And then when I got to the point where my daughter needed me to be home more, I needed to be more flexible. I was working for the talent agency that represented me. And, she goes, you might want to consider just consulting actors. You're really good at talking to people. You're encouraging and motivating and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah. So that's how it started. Is I'll just consult actors. And I'll tell them where to get their headshots, what kind of training they need, what not to do. Don't spend your money on this, that, or the other, So that's where it started. And within 6 months, it was, I believe in the law of attraction, praying about what you want, and watching those doors fly open. And that's what happened ultimately. I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, I literally said to myself, I think there needs to be another casting director here, because...
And this is Sacramento.
This is Sacramento. I'm born and raised in Sacramento, never lived in LA. I worked in LA, but never lived there. And I literally got a random call 3 days later. Guy doesn't even know where he found my number. He's like, somebody told me that you have some actors, just from my consulting, right? And then, of course, working for the agency, I knew other people. But he's like, I need some background actors. Do you have them? I'm like, yes. So my advice is, when the door opens, when you start putting it out there, manifesting what you want, and then that door opens, you got to be brave enough to walk through it.
You got to step through it.
That's called courage, bravery, and that's what changed my life, is just being open to that. And obviously it's a lot of little pieces that added up, and I look back on that and I'm like, wow, what if I didn't follow that tug and went to work for somebody else? My life would be completely different right now.
So
it's crazy.
You have this big film company.
Yeah.
You've brought movies to Sacramento.
Yeah.
You have actors that you support and you get work for.
I'm passionate about that. I love helping. Still, that is going to be always part of my DNA, is helping actors get work. So that consulting side, right? And then when I went into casting, it just was so rewarding to be able to I remember at the time I was like, I have to call them and tell them. I can't just email them, right? Well, email was still kind of slow at that time, but we pick up the phone. To me, the biggest reward is to hear somebody here, they got booked, and their reaction, like, oh my God, I have a job, I can eat. So much fun. Yeah. That was the best part. So, yeah, it's really cool to empower people. I'm very passionate about the Sacramento film community, not just in film as a producer and a casting director, but also working with actors as an acting coach. Okay. So I do acting coaching for those who are looking to get into on-camera acting, or transition from stage or take their skill sets to the next level. So to me, I find that very, very rewarding, and watching people evolve and grow and seeing the doors open up for them, what may have not ever happened, but
So when you created this company that you're running and you became an owner, not an operator, and started doing all this stuff, what was it that caused you to go to the next level and create your newest project?
So
Tell everybody about that.
So I recently launched a new film company called Wild Philly Films. And
Love the name.
Philly with an F, that's like a horse, like it's on her shirt.
Yeah, that's why I wore it.
I love it. So Wild Philly Films is a woman-owned production company that specializes in powerful documentaries and lighthearted, fun comedies that highlight women of age. So our comedy feature that we're in development for, we have a A-lister director attached. Script is amazing. We're just going out to casting now. Is about three sisters in their 60s and 70s. And there's not a lot of movies. There are more now than there were 10, 15 years ago, but there's a lot of movies.
It's a hard space.
That honor that age group. But it's funny, it's great. It's based off a book. So that was what started it. So we found this book, we optioned it, we wrote the script, we started our company. Then it was about these documentaries that we wanted to be meaningful, motivating, and empowering, because mental health is very, very important to me. And
is there a story behind that? Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that a little
so bit? My personal story, and I mean, I started really leaning into wanting to create motivational, inspirational projects, films. And so when we did one of my first films, I think my third film was called Notorious Nick, based off a true story about a one-armed, one-hand MMA champion. And against all odds, he still became a champion. And it really was a beautiful story between him and his mom and overcoming his obstacles. So that's when I started going, this is what I want to do.
That was speaking to you.
That was speaking to me. And I'm like, I love telling stories that are powerful. So that's really what, 2017, that kind of guided me in this path. But since I was a child and went through the things I had to experience, I watched my mom attempt suicide 6 times.
Oh, Lord.
She had a drug and alcohol addiction because she, in my opinion, I'll never know, because she passed away in 2009, but I believe she was undiagnosed with a mental disease, maybe bipolar on a severe level. She had an awful childhood herself. But growing up without that mother role and a father that was disconnected and emotional and all that, still there, but not there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have to force yourself to figure out what you're not going to do as a parent and what you're going to do different. And so as I grew older and in my teens, when I came home, I lived with my mom, I came home and my bedroom door was locked, and she told me that her friends, her drug dealers, need a place to stay, and they're going to stay in her bedroom. And she took me outside and showed me a tent that I was going to be staying in. I live in a tent at my own house. And that's when I realized at 15 years old, or 14, I think, at 14, that this is not healthy. That
must have been really difficult.
It was
to come to terms with.
It's still hard to even talk about.
Yeah.
But it's important that people watching know that against all odds, you can overcome that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this was my life path, because now I'm in this, fast forward, now I'm in this position to be able to help people with other challenges, to inspire them to find help, to understand that there are options out there, that you don't have to feel alone. Suicide doesn't have to be the only option. Fast forward to, growing up, when suicide was a big part of my childhood, my daughter then had witnessed an horrific traumatic event where her uncle that was close to us, who was bipolar, went off his meds, and he killed himself in front of her.
Oh, good Lord.
And I only share that again to say that life is awful, and suicide rates are higher than ever. And the reason why people aren't finding other options is because they don't hear about it. So we need to talk about it. And so my film company, Wild Philly Films, is specializing in this one documentary that's called Through Horse's Eyes, A Journey to Connection and Healing. And it's about following my daughter who had suffered such horrific, unbelievable trauma. And for 9 years had been through every kind of form of therapy and couldn't really be at peace. She got to a point she didn't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I'm just going to move on with my life. But it was still triggers and traumas coming up. So we followed her and documented 7 weeks of sessions with her, working with a horse, and how she found healing and release almost instantaneous. And today, that was October through January. Today, she's thriving. She's doing so much better.
That's amazing.
And I mean, obviously, the journey's not over for her, but now she wants to empower people and tell them how they can find healing and help. And so this movie is very near and dear to my heart because of what I went through with my mom and my daughter, and trying to help people understand that, mental health is important. And if we talk about it, we break the stigma that you don't have to keep deal with this on your own, that horses are very healing, they're like, they call them the mirror to our soul.
Oh, absolutely.
And within moments, the horse, as you step into their presence, within moments, they start matching your heartbeat to theirs.
How cool is that? I didn't know that.
It's crazy.
I've had horses my whole life.
I just got chills. I know,
That's
but
awesome.
it's
I
still
didn't know
great.
that.
Huh?
Yeah, very cool.
So we are very passionate about our film, our documentary, and then we actually have a second documentary about horses going out on a pack trip with with my film partner Kim and her friends for the last 39 years. Have been doing a High Sierra pack out where they take their horses, bunch of mules with all their ice chests and their tents, and they pack out and disconnect. So that's called The Last Ride. So Wild Philly Films has got 3 films in the process. Each of them very meaningful.
Is everyone going to be related to horses in some capacity? Or
No, probably not.
It's all about growth.
It's about motivation, inspiration, growth, and mental health.
Do you think that you've seen a disconnect with people dreaming and just sort of like putting their head down and not even kind of thinking of the possibilities?
Absolutely. I have, especially since the pandemic. And so when we all got through that, we did learn the power of the word pivot. And we all had to figure out what that looked like for our own journey. But what I feel has happened is it's diminished the spark in most of our lives of, because now you have this, like, that actually happened to us.
Yes.
That happened.
And that's an experience that we can't relate to it as a child because it happened to us when we were older.
Yes.
But it's affected the young people so much differently.
Yes.
So much differently.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just had the pleasure of going to a Tony Robbins event.
I love Tony Robbins.
I love him. And
that's amazing.
And one of the things, he talked about limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure when you were a child, you had limiting beliefs 100%. That you were never going to have a stable family.
Right.
You were telling yourself this film, you have a feature film playing in your own head about your own life.
Yep.
And the thing that's so great is that people can be the architect of their own feature film.
That's right.
They can play their own role and they can change it up. Nobody tells you squat.
Right.
You have the ability to do it yourself.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, even my actors, look, if you're being self-aware of what your own limited beliefs are, that's when you can turn it around. But unless you admit that to yourself and face it, then people then turn to substance abuse. They get isolated, and they really just need to understand it can be. I'm an example of what my life should have been was not what it is. Like I didn't have the support. I didn't have stability. I didn't have money. We didn't have any, everything I have had to learn was what I don't want. And I don't want my life to look like my mom and my dad's.
But if you focus it on what you don't want, it's actually like the big rock. You actually end up kind of going towards what you don't want.
True. I think what I felt was the don't want for me was what did they not do? I'm going to do that. That's what I meant. Yeah. So you're right. You can't put focus on the negative. You have to focus on what's possible, and you have to dream, and you have to believe. And when you think about what you want, and you get excited. That energy is what's going to attract.
And that's the whole thing. The whole
Yeah.
premise behind Tony Robbins and his energy
Yes,
thing.
it
Yeah,
is.
jumping up and down, doing crazy stuff. And I'm like, why are we doing this? He said, you don't understand. It's the energy that sort of pushes the momentum, pushes it into you.
Yeah.
That helps you go forward.
It's beautiful. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, because at the end of the day, we can all wake up in a funk.
Everybody.
Every day. And, you can let finances, physical pain, challenges, and whatever hold you back. Or maybe you're in that job that you absolutely are miserable about. I can speak to that. I was at a job that I took while I was doing my business with the state of California, producing and directing. Started out great, but then it was for the California lottery and the show went away. They canceled. They moved me to a different department, and I was miserable. I wasn't being utilized. So when you are unhappy, that means you're on the wrong path. And it literally took me 3 or 4 years to finally have the courage to leave the steady paycheck, the paid time off and holidays and all that perks that you get with working with the state. But it took me being so miserable to have the courage to go, I can leave. I had a business. It was a part-time business, yes, but I could have, so I just, what can I do?
Do you think it has to be like a miserable to make that jump? Or do you think, because there's so many, to me, it feels like a lot of people sort of live in it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
They're
not bad.
It's almost like
It's almost
complacent.
like self-medicated.
Yeah.
To be okay with meh.
Great point, Elizabeth. Great point. I think it's important to say, if you feel you have a calling that's in there, that you hear, that you feel, and you're drowning it out because you have to keep a steady job. I mean, let me tell you, my dad was like, do not leave that job. He was like, that is because that was his old school. Exactly. His belief system.
Yeah.
And I finally said, Dad, I understand, but I'm going to do it. I have to do it. Okay.
Look what happened.
And then I took off. I mean,
Look what happened.
that year I made 2 movies. The first year I left, I have made 12 movies total since. And I wouldn't have done that if I was still there. And so I think there's something to be said about getting uncomfortable, to being okay with stepping into the unknown and knowing that your life, if you have something deep within that's calling you, your life can flourish. I then met my now husband, who was 100% supportive, and he's like, you do you. And I mean, but before I was just putting a Band-Aid on it and dating all the wrong people, and
So as you're sitting here thinking about your daughter and the life that you have today, that you've manifested and created through dreaming about things, what one thing would you want people to take away from your lesson and your life journey that you've learned, and what would you want your daughter to specifically take away?
And this is a great question, because right now she's reinventing herself after a bad COVID divorce, COVID marriage, COVID divorce. That's what I call it, because it was not the right person for her. And so I would honestly say, the takeaway is never give up. Always have faith that you were put here for a reason. I feel like now I'm finally living my reason.
It's taken a while.
It's taken
okay.
a while. I am
It's
not
okay
a spring chicken.
But it's okay for it to take a while, right?
Absolutely.
Get there.
Absolutely. And I think she's been, one of my biggest witnesses to it. So she knows. She's probably my biggest cheerleader. So I would say to anybody in her shoes and like her path is just don't give up. Just keep manifesting what you want, and identify your strengths, but also identify your limiting beliefs. Where is that coming from? Is that your story, or was that your parents?
Somebody else's
or a sister or a brother or an old employee from your first job telling you you're not worth anything? It's not true. You are enough. You are God's child. You were put here for a reason, and we all have a purpose. And when you are, and I'm gonna tell you, making movies is not easy. It may sound glamorous, but it ain't easy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you probably know. But when you're doing what you're supposed to do, it isn't work. It's work. You're stressed and tired, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I feel like I'm creating.
It fills your bucket.
It fills my bucket, and and what I do, I feel like I'm blessing so many other people whether it's crew member or an actor or somebody that lets you shoot at a location that they're all excited, made their day making a movie at their bar or their restaurant. You know what I mean? And so that's the beautiful thing, is when you are living on your right path, then it doesn't mean stress goes away. It just means you're fulfilled, you're blessed, you're content, and it breeds. So if we all did what we're supposed to be doing in this life, so if you're content and all that, you're just like, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I'm content. Imagine the lives you're going to touch and the legacy you'll leave behind. That's an important thing.
And I'm super excited to see what you do next.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thanks so much for being here,
I
Sally.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, let's